Yo, yes, man, them chat. Welcome another Wednesday. Today we have a special guest speaker in the house, Doctor and Pastor Trevor Adams, faith leader, community activist, and all-round good guy around the town. Welcome, Trevor.
Thank you, Mark. Good to be here. Good to be here.
Yeah, man, welcome to Man Them Chat. So basically, Pastor, do you want to kind of take it from the beginning?
Yeah, I can do, but before I start, I just like to just to acknowledge the different guests that you have had on your show, your wonderful show, by the way. I've watched the YouTube videos, and you've had some amazing people, really amazing people on the show. So I want to acknowledge that. I want to acknowledge Lorna, the work that she's done, Victor, who's here today, Pastor Denny, you've had Glenn, Councillor Gilbert as well. You know, it's been really enriching. And I want to say that to silence the people who are telling the story that nothing is happening in Luton, that the Black community isn't doing anything. You just have to talk to the different people to hear and to find out what it is that they are actually doing, and to know that great things are actually happening in Luton. And guys, you know, MDC, it's amazing. This platform that you have provided really absolutely warms my heart to see, you know, your generation running with the baton. So I just really wanted to say that before I start to share a bit about my journey here within the community. I came to Luton in roughly around 1987. And why I came to Luton, my wife and myself, we found that the property prices was a lot cheaper in Luton than it was in London. I grew up in Harrow, got married, and we lived in Stonebridge. We lived in Stonebridge and we work in Harleston. So we had been very much involved in the church and within the community. So when we came to Luton, we were still traveling backwards and forwards to London to work. And so we didn't really get a chance to see much people apart from the people who we knew in the local church. So not a lot of people did we get a chance to meet. We knew about Mrs. Henry, right there in the market, Mrs. Henry. And that provided a safe space where you meet people from our community, you know? And again, if Mrs. Henry and her family hadn't put up that stall in the market, many of us probably wouldn't have been able to meet up, would have not have been able to meet each other. The time came when I left my job in London, and I didn't have another job to go to. I'd walked out of a job in London, and so I didn't have another job to go to. And I'd applied to work with council, a part-time job I saw, working in Starlight, the famous Starlight, working with Bernie and Linnis, Bob Baker and Philip Rose. And I used to see so many people from the community coming into Starlight. And that way I began to make connections with the different people there within the community. And what I've always found is that the Black people in Luton who have a heart for our community and who want to make a difference. But kind of fast forward, when I became the minister for the local church within Luton, I knew that being a church leader and being a member of a local church and coming from a professional background, that I knew I had something to offer. I had something to offer.
Sorry,
But at
could
the
you just
time,
mention the name of this church?
sorry?
Could you just mention the name of this church?
Yeah, it was called the Church of God of Prophecy. It was based in Marsh Farm. We lived in Stopsley, and we attended the church on Marsh Farm at the Jubilee Centre. So we lived in Stopsley, and we attended the church at the Jubilee Centre in Marsh Farm. What I found was that we came into Marsh Farm on the Sunday, used the premises, and then everyone kind of go out of Marsh Farm. So what we decided to do, we decided to sell up from where we lived in Stopsley and to move onto the estates in Marsh Farm. And people said, "You're crazy. You're absolutely crazy. No one sells a house in Stopsley and move onto Marsh Farm." They said it is absolutely crazy. They said that people do it the other way around, the other way around. But where we live in a predominantly white middle class area, etc., etc. And the only time you really got to talk to people was during the summer if you're out there cutting. When we moved on to Marsh Farm, about a month after we moved on Marsh Farm, then there was the civil disturbance on the estate. And to be honest with you, I thought, what did I do? What did I do? Move my family from Stopsley to Marsh Farm. But I tell you what, the nicest people live on Marsh Farm, live on the estate. We, I would go to the shop, 5 minutes walk, and I would be engaged in conversation, and it was just a absolutely amazing experience, meeting people within the community. And it was very much a community. You met people, you go to the shop, you talk to people, etc., etc., etc. Okay, and of course, after the civil disturbance, there were fires. The school, Wallet School, was partly set on fire, and the Pearly Centre was partly set on fire as well. But let me go back a bit. So when I was pastor, there's a guy called David Lewis. He worked for the council. He worked for the education department. And he came to me and he said, "Pastor, you need to get involved in education, because within," and I think Lorna spoke about this as well, because at that time, only 23% of Black pupils, boys and girls, only 23% were getting 5 or more GCSEs, only 23%. If we wanted to riot, that should have been something for us to riot about. The fact that only 23% of our children go through the education system for 11 years, primary school, secondary school, and only come out with with only 23% coming out with 5 or more GCSEs.
Sure.
Absolutely criminal.
Mm.
So as Lorna mentioned, some of us we came together and start to challenge the local authority on what was actually happening. At the time also, I set up the Black Boys Can, Luton Black Boys Can, because what I saw from the fact that only 23% of our kids were coming out with 5 or more GCSEs, when it came to the boys, exclusion rate was high, and the qualification rate was low. So high exclusion, and low academic attainment. So set up the Black Boys Can. And can you believe it? We contacted schools and we said to schools, let us come in and work with our boys. Let us come in and work with our boys. They were concerned that we were using the name Black Boys and that we wanted to work with Black boys, right? They were concerned why, some teachers would complain, why Black boys? Why Black boys? It was almost as if Black was offensive to them. But I said, you use the term. You have said these Black boys aren't achieving to their potential. You are saying that these Black boys are getting into trouble. Okay, so we set up the Black Boys Can program and started to work with Black boys, started to go into schools. And I think you guys would know Tyrone, biblical Tyrone Gordon.
Yes.
Yeah. So we employed Tyrone, working with Tyrone to work with the Black boys within the schools and within the community. So we ran the Black Boys Can program within the schools and within the community, and we saw differences being made. Saw that differences were being made, and as a result of that, there was a mental health advocacy for the Black community in Luton that was run by the Law Center, right? So there's a Black advocacy project in Luton that was run by the Law Center. But guess what? It wasn't addressing the needs of the Black community, right? So a Black mental health advocacy, there was a fantastic young lady who was working there who wanted to take the project towards the direction that it would actually help us as a community. And she was being blocked all the way. So Bob Baker approached me and says, Pastor, could your organization take on the mental health advocacy? So I said yes. And so we set up a mental health advocacy for the Black community called Dignity. Now, I really, really want you to grasp and understand, Brother Andrew was talking about cancer. But if you look at all the areas, whether it's cancer, whether it's diabetes, whether it's high blood pressure, whether it's mental health, our community are impacted by those particular issues. And so mental health at the time was massive, was a massive issue, because most Black young men were being sectioned, going into mental health institution via the criminal justice system. And at the time, and it still is through the criminal justice system. And at the time, there was a man, his name was David Rocky Bennett. We talk, and this is why it's so important to engage with people within the community who've been there for a while. It is so important. It's also important to know our history. Now, we, with George Floyd, amazing impact. The world became aware of what was actually happening. But David Rocky Bennett was a Black young man who was held down, and suffocated. So when we talk about George Floyd, people think, oh wow, this is something almost like this is something just to happen now. David Rocky Bennett was held down, and because he was held down, couldn't breathe. And his sister, Dr. Joanna Bennett, had to fight for there to be a public inquiry into what happened to her brother. Okay, she fought the system and she won, and there was a public inquiry into his death. The outcome of that was that there was supposed to be training in terms of restraint. Yes, police officers, others learning how to restrain. That was one of the things that came out of the result of his tragic death. So setting up the mental health, because I recognize that the mental health legislation is one of the most powerful legislation that can take away a person's dignity, a person's dignity. And so the organization, the project that I set up was called Dignity, because the intention was to restore people's sense of dignity and sense of worth. And it provided advocacy for anyone in the community, Black community with mental health issues, and had to face different institutions. We provided advocacy support. We provided advocacy support to family members who wanted to support their beloved person within the family who might have had a mental health problem. So if you can imagine then, as a pastor, being aware of a predominantly Black congregation, being aware that within the community, that there were all of these issues, there was no way that I could remain silent and not step in and to speak on behalf of what was actually happening there within our community. There were other mental health support projects like Nyabingi and Ashanti, and I think Lorna spoke about that as well. It was a Black support service, mental health, Ashanti, okay, and Rushni, and of course the Black support group that was shut down, okay. But thankfully Nyabingi, they're still there, which is a user organization. They're there still providing the support that we need within our community. And what I also saw as I began to be involved in different things was that our community didn't have a voice. Or we had a voice, but it wasn't being heard. It wasn't being heard. It was almost as if we didn't matter. We didn't matter. We are there within Luton, but we didn't matter. You know, we became invisible. We became invisible until we started to come together and do things. And don't let people fool you and say that we don't work together and we can't work together. Don't let them fool you. We've done it. Lorna spoke about it. We've done it. We have came together and we saw something happen that transformed the educational achievement of our young people. We came together around mental health issues, right? So don't let anyone tell you, because what they want us to do is to think that we can't do this ourselves. We have to have someone else coming in to do it for us. We're not united. We're not together. Okay, that may well have been history. That may well have been history. Okay, but Black people have always worked together. Sorry, Councillor Gilbert, go ahead.
Being on the council on school governor as well, and I was school governor at Whitefield School in Marsh Farm. And I can tell you now, we used to have governor's parent meeting, and I would say to my wife, I'm going to a meeting, and then less than 20 minutes, I'm back home. And she says, what happened? The parents never used to turn up. They didn't care, right? Now, tell me, why is it Black boys and children, when they're in the primary school, they're perfect, but there's a problem as soon as they get to the secondary school, then problem seems to start. Can you explain what might cause that?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Let me go back to your point in terms of parents. I think the assumption when parents are not at the school, the assumption is that parents aren't interested in their child's education. Imagine if you came, for example, from a single parent, and you have got to put food on that table. You may have to work 24/7. It becomes very, very difficult. And that is the reason why, within our culture, we have the saying, it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to raise a child. And the reason why is recognize that mom is not sufficient alone. Mom and dad is not sufficient alone. Mom, dad, auntie, uncle is not sufficient alone. That saying recognize that it takes all of us to raise a child. Okay, so in terms of black boys starting off high, they start off in way ahead of their peers, and by the time they got to year 6 and it shifted to year 9, there's a drop, and by the time they leave school, they leave behind everyone else. Yeah, they're far behind everyone else. But there are a number of reasons. We are quite quick to blame parents, quite quick to blame parents, to blame, single moms, etc. I came from a single mom parent, and I know the struggles, and I understand the struggle, and hence the reason why I go into the schools and work with the boys. Don't blame the parents. I go into school and I work with the boys. Another issue is issues around the curriculum. Okay. Another issue has been the absence of Black role models, teachers there within the schools, within leadership positions within the schools. Not simply the person who's the dinner supervisor or the cleaner, but in top positions there within the school. We've had quite a few Black head teachers in Luton, and what has actually happened? They've been ran. They've been pushed out. Okay, so I am more interested in what can we do to work with our boys. When I go into the schools, the first thing that I say to the boys, why do you think I'm here? The first thing they would say to me is because of their behavior. It's because of their behavior, okay? And because of their behavior, I've come in. No, so what I say, the first thing I said to them is that I don't work with boys who misbehave. I work with geniuses who don't know their geniuses, and because they don't know their geniuses, they misbehave. Then the second thing I said to them, I am here to bring out the genius inside of you. The third thing I do is I ask them the question, what's inside of you? And they learn a genius. What's inside of you? A genius. So that becomes the starting point of working with the boys, allowing them to see that there is a genius inside of them. Now, within the education system, they learn maths, they learn science, they learn history, they learn geography, they learn music. And they're told these are the subjects. Those are the subjects. When I go in, and going back to your question, Councillor Gilbert, it is about re-educating our children, So I teach them maths, English, science, whatever. Those aren't subjects, those are disciplines. They are disciplines. And in the same way you go into a gym and you pick up the weights, you're using the weights to help you develop your body. It's the same way that those different disciplines are there to develop you, develop yourself mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So mathematics isn't about numbers. Mathematics is about being able to think and to be able to think logically. Okay, mathematics is a language of science. If you know mathematics, you know the sciences. Okay, so it isn't so much. It isn't.
Sorry, 1 minute. Go ahead.
It isn't so much. So in order to understand why it is with the boys, W.E. Du Bois, American sociologist, spoke about it. Something called double consciousness. Double consciousness, seeing yourself through somebody else's eyes. When our children step into the school, they don't see themselves through their eyes. They see themselves through the eyes of the system. And the system says to them, you are a problem. You are a problem. And can you imagine, right? W.E. the boy asked the question, how does it feel to be a problem? How does it feel to be a problem? That's the question that we should be asking to understand why it is that our boys behave the way they do. Just ask the question, how does it feel to be a problem? How does it feel to be a problem? I know when I was in the school, I was seen as a problem. I wasn't a problem child. I was seen as a problem. Okay. And in this day and age, it still seems the same.
True.
Brother Mark?
Mark, yeah, you got a question, Mark?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to, hold on. I just wanted to sort of share my sort of experience, you know, a lot
go
of
ahead.
it resonates what Gilbert was saying, and Trevor. So basically, I was quite bright in school, you know what I mean? Like in throughout all primary school, infant school, I was very bright. I was in the top sets for everything. But obviously, a lot of the time, my mum couldn't come to the thing because she was always working. Leave the house really early, you know, have to come home because cook my dad's dinner, all sorts of things. So it wasn't like she wasn't really that interested. She was. And she must have been, because I used to have only access to books and stuff. She used to buy things and give me to read. You understand? My dad wasn't as brilliant, but, you know, so it go. But the thing is, what was different to me is that it's like the school I went to was a bit of a free thinking school. It was weird. It was full of hippies, innit? Denby Junior School. So it was just full of kind of hippie kind of thing, counterculture. And it kind of helped, you know, there was no uniform, there was no corporal punishment. The headmaster would take you out to teach you how to write a check. They make chapatis. Yeah, they make chapatis, things, you know, all things like that, you know, just, you know, most of the afternoon, right, you play chess. You don't even do lessons, you play chess. Them sort of things. That's what was happening in the school. And I strived in that environment. But as soon as I went to Denby High School now, it just went downhill. By the time I reached the second year, I was in the bottom sets for everything. So it kind of just goes to show what kind of structure they're giving. And it is sometimes the structures in these schools are not really, they're not designed for us, are they? They're not really designed to kind of, you know, help us strive. You know, all of the English boys, they seem to strive, you know what I mean? All the guys I was in the top sets in primary school, they stayed in the top sets until they left school, where I never. And I wonder why that is, because I wasn't really a bad kid in school, really.
Absolutely.
Well, not until about the third year, to be honest, but by then, you know what I mean? So that was just my sort of take on the matter.
No, I think that's so important because you know, the boys are seen as a problem. You're seen as a problem. And what do we do with problems? What do we do with problems? We try to get rid of the problem, right? But it's easy. It's very, very easy to blame the child because the child is vulnerable. The child really doesn't have a voice. So it's very, very easy to blame the child. But it's also important, picking up on what Mark was saying, because I think I might be slightly older than Mark, just slightly, right? You know, I was at school back in the late 60s and 70s when I came to England, and of course back home in Guyana, you know, we were advanced. So when we came to England, and this is recorded. This is part of the history. We were being put into the lower classes. Yeah, we were being put into the lower classes. We were put into sets, and notice the word set. Okay, notice the word set. Okay, so if you was in the lower set, it's almost like you are set. You are set to be in that lower class. And so we've had it recorded that the fact that the education system was very, very much designed to make the Black child educationally subnormal. Yeah, educationally subnormal. You know, what is that all about? You know, as Mark said, he was very, very bright. And so many of us, when we were in a school system, were very, very bright. Okay. And that's the reason why I go back into school, because when I left school, left school, those who remember the O levels and the CSEs, right? When I left school with CSE English and CSE mathematics. That was it. That was it. Okay. So if you look at the achievement of Black youngsters when I was at school, you would say, the kids aren't intelligent, blah 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 blah, right? But understanding the system, how the system works, how does the system does not work for the Black child, okay? And by the way, even in private school, our kids have challenges there as well, right? Even within a private school. So my involvement within the education, it's because of my own lived experience. So, yeah, if I'm raised with a single mother, I'm supposed to end up in jail. I'm supposed to, but my mom was interested in my education, right? But the thing about it is that she trusted the British education system. She trusted it because back home, Britain is seen as being up there. Everybody wants the British education. So it stands to reason, if you are here in Britain, you put your child into a British school, it stands to reason that they should somehow do well, okay? But what our parents did not understand is the fact what was actually happening within the school. And the children were being blamed for it. It was the children that were being blamed. And this day and age is the same thing. It's the children that are being blamed.
Can I just interject quickly there? I mean, I think that's quite similar, like you said earlier, Pastor Trevor and Mark. I mean, I think a lot of us in that time, the struggle to earn a living and care the home came kind of in between being there at school for your children. Like you said, single parent families trying to pay the rent. Do you know what I mean? You struggle across the board, I think.
All of my white and Asian friends, their mothers were just like dinner ladies. That was about it. Worked about 2 hours on their little cleaning job. And they was at home for them, innit? Where my mother was putting in proper shifts.
Yeah, same here.
Real hardcore shifts, innit? And that must have, a lot of the guys' mums I know, they all worked in Vauxhall.
Yeah.
So
and my mum and dad did the same thing.
Is it us men?
On a woman, my mum did the same thing. She was at Vauxhall. My dad was at Vauxhall. But my mum, credit to her still, she'd be at she'd be a governor at the school at the school. And I never love it. I'm not gonna lie to you, I hated it. But anything would go on, they would look at me and say, "Oh, well, I'm not proper talks." Do you know what I mean? But that was the situation. But you're right, across the board, mainly, a lot of the time, they just haven't got the time. And there's a question here from Andrew. I think, Mark, that relates to what the current curriculum derives as genius and necessary for your career. I believe career pathways at the secondary school stage are more limited than we all realize and do not allow for true expression and passion for a particular career. And as such, Black boys in regard to this conversation can sometimes be set back. Most definitely. Go ahead, Marv. Go ahead, Marv.
Me?
Yeah. My question was quickly. So in hearing, like you were saying, that mothers, just like my mum, brother, sometimes when I was in school, I never see my mum for 2 weeks. Sometimes I spoke to my mum over the phone because maybe when I was in bed, she'd come in from work, or I'm at school, she'd come in from work, and by the time I come back, she's gone again. So, she never really have time to come to school meetings, parents' evenings, and, do all of that. So my question was quickly, is it then us men, fathers, who has failed and not really, taken up our responsibilities the way we should have? That's the first question. And then the next question is, are we going to stay there and try and fight the education system to guarantee that the curriculum our kids are taught you know, is taught in an adequate way, that obviously we respond to the education, take in the education, and give us the true history, true knowledge? Or is it for us ourselves to create these schools? Just like I'll say, you know, the Muslims, they've got their out of hours school, where even though the kids may go private or state school, after hours, they're still in this building, you know, still being taught their culture, their traditions, their ways. So is that was my two questions there,
Yeah,
Dr. Trevor.
very good question. I think the first thing that we need to do is to celebrate and thank our mothers, because Black mothers were very much put down by the education system. It's the mother's fault. But what Black mothers did, and the system knows, society knows that Black mothers are powerful, really powerful. Okay, and so we need to continue to recognize the contribution that Black mothers have made in our lives and within our community. Fathers, for many different reasons, many different reasons, may not have access, or may not have been able to play the role, or their own experience of schooling, they may still be working through. But my point is this, this is my point. It isn't just simply the mother or the father. It is the whole village. It is the whole village. We were the first ones to set up Saturday schools. Yes, Saturday school. Where I work at a college, there's a maths class that they have, and it's primarily kids from a different community who are there at the maths class. We need to recognize and really meditate and think about that saying, it takes a whole village to raise a child. Because it's not about blaming mothers, it's not about blaming fathers, it's about what can we do? What can we do? And that's why I go into the school. And that's why I work with mums and sons. That's why I work with parents, because there's something that I can do. Okay. When the kids see the letters before my name, DR, I said to them, it does not mean dunce redeemed, right? It doesn't mean dunce redeemed, right? Okay. It's more than that. Okay. It means that I'm no longer on the plantation. Nobody could say to me, I cannot do it. I'm not bright enough. I'm not intelligent enough. And no one should tell you you're not bright, intelligent enough. Sorry, Abdul.
Yeah, go ahead, Abdul. Your hand up first.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say, I mean, I said well, you know, there's no balance really in education. There's no balance really for Black children. There's no balance at all. Because what I'm talking about balance, I mean, there's no one that really looks like them in the classroom who are principals or whatever, like, you know what I mean. So it has to have an effect on the Black child, like. It has to have an effect on the Black child, you know, because when I was at school, like, you know, all I saw was mainly, I mean, people who didn't look like me at all. So I mean, subconsciously, I wasn't taking any subject in as such. Subconsciously, that's how I look at it. You know, looking back at it, I couldn't take anything in at all, really. You know what I'm saying? So therefore, I really could. I mean, I really didn't do much. I didn't do well at school at all. Really. It's only when I left school and I became worldly in my thoughts or whatever. Like, I became more aware of what's going on around me. Like, you know, I feel I'm more intelligent now than when I was at school. Like, you know, because of life's experience. Like, you know, stuff like that. Yeah, but yeah.
I would like to say something.
Hold on, Councillor. I think Garvin had his hand up first. Garvin, go ahead. You there,
Yes,
Garvin?
yes. Good night. This is not a question really, but just a contribution coming from the Caribbean and growing up in the Caribbean and going to school in the Caribbean. So it's pretty much about family and the type of family. So this really in relation to what Mark has mentioned. Now, I pretty much grew up in a single home family with the mother being the main breadwinner as usual. And just as Mark, growing up in primary school wasn't a challenge to me at all. So I was doing excellent in primary school. As soon as I entered secondary school, that's when things went downhill a bit, because it was a bit more difficult, and because primary school wasn't a challenge, I never used to study. And then again, we having like PTAs, and mother being the only person around, and she always working. She has never turned up to a PTA meeting. So there's nobody giving me any sort of motivation, nobody scolding me when I'm doing wrong, etc. And that in itself led to me not leaving secondary school with very good grades. So it's after leaving school that's when I had to work on myself to bring things together. So it just shows how important a good family structure is in terms of maintaining those sort of things.
I'd say, like I said before, mine was slightly reversed. My mum or my dad would turn up to parents' meeting, and I dreaded it. I ain't lying, I dreaded it, man. When they come home, boys are whopping. Councillor Gilbert Campbell, go ahead.
Thank you. You know, I was saying about I was school governor, Whitefield Infant and Junior. Most of the kids there was white. I wasn't referring to black kids in general. I'm just saying parents totally across that school would not come to the meetings for governors and Now I come in 61. I went to a school in London, Paddington, Rutherford. There was 4 of us and 1 Chinese. A 15-year-old white boy been through all the school and couldn't read. We could read. We were good at maths. I used to do algebra in Jamaica before I come to England. And when I come to that school in Rutherford, they were so far behind back in the 60s.
My mum said that. She said the same thing.
My last child went to a private school in Bedford. And I'm telling you, when I went to the presentation with the MP, all the black children in there came tops. Every one of the black children then came A+. So you can put a child into a private school, but if they don't want to learn, they're not going to learn. But a lot of black children, most of them black girls in that school came the tops, right? They beat all the white children. So black, don't put our children down. They're very clever children. And as I said, when you first had me on, most of the young blacks in this town has left because they're well educated and they've gone to better life outside of Luton.
Sure.
Education doesn't mean to say that you're intelligent, though, does it? It doesn't mean to say you're intelligent, does it?
Can I just interject here? When we talk about intelligence, we need to define what we mean and who determines what is intelligence. What is intelligent? There is a talk about multiple intelligence. So you may be intelligent when it comes to learning languages. You may be intelligent when it comes to art or mathematics or music. So there are different ways a child can be recognized their potential. But this word intelligence, there has been no tool that can measure a human intelligence. Okay, because the intelligence, what we call intelligent, is a group of people determine this is what defining what intelligent is, and if you don't fit that category, you are not intelligent. My message to all the boys and girls I work with: you are born intelligent. You have to discover your talent and your gift and run with that. The education system assumes that when a child comes, they've got to fill the child's head. But that's not what education means. Education, educare, means to draw out, not to put in, but to draw out. In other words, every person comes into the world with gifts, talents, and ability. And the education, educare, is to bring it out, not to put it in.
Yeah, I agree. Elvis Vera, you got your hand up? You there, Elvis?
You're on mute.
He's muted.
Is he muted?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll come back to you then, Elvis.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you
Okay.
there? All right, okay.
Okay. It wasn't really a question. It was more just to add, because there's so many different things that happen to youngsters in this country. Society has changed. And when I was growing up, my mum did the same. She was a music teacher. She did weddings. She did, I was constantly putting thread in her bobbin for her singer machine while she was doing dresses and things like that. So I spent a lot of time seeing her work very, very hard. My dad wasn't around. He was still in the West Indies. So I grew up in that single parent situation. But I mean, at the end of the day, I do think that society has got a lot to answer for. Governments, they make these people, to me, I mean, I'm not totally sure how it's run, but I get the feeling that governments govern the school boards, and black people on the whole were never really, they didn't really want us to do well. When my sisters came here, they were well in front of everyone. So I can agree with all of that. And I agree also with Trevor and the councillor that we have a chance to turn things around, but I don't know that we ever will, because I sometimes think that we just follow the things of the past and bring them all round again. I think it's really important that fathers get involved with the kids, and don't allow situations where mothers are left on their own to do stuff. That is one of the things that I probably would feel very strongly about, that mothers are left to get on with it.
Sure.
I mean, just because you're not with the woman anymore doesn't mean that you don't have a part to play in questioning what your child's doing, where they're going, when they're coming back, how they're getting on at school, showing a bit of care and love. These are the things that are really important. I think, Trevor, you were saying, you boost the kids when you're in the school more so than tell them that they're not any good at what they're doing. You're trying to bring things out of them. And I think that's really important, but I also think that's a parent thing too.
Yeah,
Parents
definitely.
should be doing a lot of this. So I think that there are a lot of young people now that are doing something for themselves. It's a bit like what the counsellor was saying, you know, A-star student. My daughter's A-star student. She's always been an A-star student, but I can see quite easily, if I wasn't around, that she would just start to go out, not bother, do her own thing. And, you know, I do think society has a bit part to play. All we see is our role models being rappers and gold diggers, you know. It's very rare that you see someone with some intelligence out there being picked up. We you know, society picks up the sportsman more so, you know, the footballer, the basketball player, you know, it's rare that we really accolade our people of knowledge.
True.
So I do think we've got a part to play, and we can blame other people, but I still think we've got a lot to do ourselves as a people to turn things around.
Yeah, I'd agree. Andrew, you got your hand up?
I mean, sorry, I don't know if that made any sense to anybody. Did that make any sense? Because sometimes when I speak, I go off on tangents. So hopefully you understood what I was saying.
No, it's
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, we got that. We got that. Yeah, Andrew.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Can you hear me, guys?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Elvis. I think, you know, because I was going to say you kind of said almost what I wanted to kind of say as well, and in regards to what Dr. Adams was saying as well. I think we have to redefine and embrace the definition of genius and intelligence, and know where our intelligence can take us. I mean, this is my first time in this group, and I'm sitting here with 12 other people, and without, you know, the first time kind of meeting most of you, but I assume that you are in careers or, you know, going down paths that you have chosen to go down, whatever that may be. That is an achievement. Do you know what I mean? That is intelligence. That's genius. Now, I didn't have a university education, but any career that I have been in or succeeded to, I've done it through hard graft, through thinking about, okay, well, I won't have the certificates. I won't have the certificates or the Oxbridge or the Oxford or Cambridge university certificate behind me. However, I know that there's a way, as long as I can kind of get my foot in the door, then I will do the graft to kind of get to the position I want. I've managed to, you know, get into a relationship where now we have a roof over our head and we are looking after our, you know, our children. That's an achievement. That's a level of intelligence, because, and what I said in my comments, the career pathway would say, well, the only way you can do that is if you go to Oxford, take on a student loan that you'll never ever pay off, and then you can, you know, start looking about getting a roof over your head. Well, that may not be a suitable path for all of us, you know, but let's embrace the intelligence. That means that we're here now, you know, we're here now having a discussion on a social media kind of platform. You know, what difference is you know, thing that Elon Musk or any of those entrepreneurs might be doing? We're doing exactly the same thing. So yes, we do have intelligence. We just have to recognize that it's intelligence, and as Dr. Adams was saying, and genius as well, and embrace that. And our path might be slightly different, but that's fine, as long as the end goal, and then as long as we kind of are putting food on our table and looking after our families. That is an achievement. That's where we need to be now. You know, yes, I could have gone, you know, 3-4 years down the university route, but I decided to work instead. You know, but I'm still, you know, and as long as I have breath in my body, I'll still do what I can to look after my wife and my children. that is a level of achievement. That's a level of genius. And I have learned, call it streetwise if you want, you know, what I need to do to maintain that. And that is the most important thing. So, you know, we have to kind of redefine what genius is. People think that genius is, you know, being able to earn however amount of money and living in, you know, the castle on the top of the hill, you know.
True.
Genius is doing what you need to do within the laws and that we're kind of bounded and guided by, to make sure that we can still, you know, have things like this where we can come here in a format and have intelligent, you know, meaningful kind of conversations, and then tomorrow we go and continue, you know, to kind of live our lives and make sure that we are, you know, putting food on our table. That is, you know, that is genius, and that's what we've got to have to teach our young boys as well. You know, don't let the curriculum dictate to you what intelligence and what kind of genius is. You know,
Definitely.
if you could think how to get there, and you know how to get there, you know, and call it what you want, call it emotional intelligence, call it being streetwise, call it whatever, you know that as well, because you can't teach that. That is inbred in us. If I put the 13 of us on a plane to wherever, you know, tomorrow and said, okay, we'll start your life in this country, I guarantee within a year, you know, so all of us would be, you know, making sure that we're, you know, doing what we need to get by within, you know, within the laws, within the round, because we are, you know, in 13 intelligent men here who are capable to do that.
Okay. Abdul said, yes, giving the youth a sense of who they are and a sense of themselves is most important. And then later on, he said he calls it brainwashing. I'm assuming he means what the government would do or at school. Blaps, you got your hand up?
Yes, I didn't. I might have to pop off real quick if I hear my bell ring, because I'm expecting someone.
You're crackling.
Dr. Adams, thank you for coming in. It's always good to see you again, looking well and thing. Can I ask you, what is your greatest obstacle for teaching children in Luton? Especially, is it the council, the parents, or the schools, or is there something outside? And also funding for whatever event you're doing. And that's the bell I was waiting for. Can you wait 2 minutes, please? I'm going to come back.
Okay.
So can I say that while Victor is just there door, what was put into the chat, where Abdul said, I call it brainwashing. It could be the other way around. So our children has been filled with all sorts of nonsense, whereby their brain have to be washed. So telling them about who they are, their potential, what they can achieve, that's part of the washing, that's part of the cleaning from the toxic information that they have been given.
True. Can be done both ways.
Yes, it can be looked at both ways. I think it really is, going back to what Andrew has said about intelligent. My starting point is to try to discover who this child is. What is it that they're naturally good at? What is their interest? Because once you know what a person is good at, what they're motivated to do, you can teach them anything in the world, because you can link it to it. So when I work with children, I use music, I use films to convey to them the message that I need to convey to them. So once you know what a child is interested in, then you can start to use the disciplines, the maths, the language, the music, the science. You can use those disciplines to bring out that genius inside of them. And what I mean by genius, I mean that purpose for which they came into this world, to make a contribution to the world. I tell them that you have come into this world to make a contribution. You are a gift to us. And can you imagine how that builds a child's esteem when they know that they are a gift to us and their talent is needed, their talent is wanted? Victor, you're back.
Yes. Did you answer my question? Did you move on?
No, no, I didn't. I was waiting for you.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Okay, let me start with the reverse one in terms of funding. In terms of funding, when I set up the Black Boys Camp program, it was a time when the council,
Marsh Farm, right?
no, before then, way before them, where the council had received some funds from Children's Fund. Before they received the fund, they had sent me email as a consultation, a letter as a consultation document, asking me what do I think as a member of the Black community, what do I think the greatest needs would be around children and education. And I sent them back a message to say, it's Black boys. That is not only local, but it's national. And so when the council divided up the funds, guess how much money they allocated for work with Black boys?
1,200 quid.
Zero. Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. So I spoke to one of the local councillors at the time, and she said, you need to go directly to the chief executive. So when my colleague wrote a letter to the chief executive, they wrote back and says, well, if you can get an application to us, a proposal to us, this was like, the letter came on the Tuesday, and we had to get to them by the Thursday, the deadline. Okay. Now, what they, but what they don't know is that I think of ideas beforehand and I write them down. So when it came back, we just said, here you are, right? So they allocated us something like 20 something thousand pounds, right? This is interesting. We went to the schools. We says, look, you don't have to pay us anything. We've got some money. Let's come in and work with the boys. Were they interested? No, they were not interested one bit. Okay. And so what eventually happened is that I decided to start to charge the schools. You know, there must be something in our human nature that says if it's given to you free, is of no value.
Don't want it. Yeah.
But if you have to pay for it, it must be valuable.
Yeah.
And so what happened was that when the funding ran out, and this is another thing, Brother Andrew, I hope you're still there. This is another thing. The little bit of funding that they give to try and tackle an issue that's been long-standing, it's a joke. Yes. So the funding is a little bit of funding to fund something that's been long-standing. So eventually I just said to them, look, you know what? We will do this. We will do this. Whether or not you give us any money, we will still do it. And so what we started to do was to run the programs in the community, in the community. So the Holy Cross Church building, we started to run it there. Okay. We start to run the program within the community so that we maintain ownership of it, right? There's no money given for working with Black boys. Yeah, no money given. But I made up my mind to say, look, you know what? It's needed. It's needed. And we are going to do it, whether or not you give us money or not, it's needed. And plus, you cannot tell us what we can or cannot teach our boys. Right. So going back to your question, Victor.
Funds.
It's not dependent on the funding. It's not dependent on the funding. When I go into schools, I don't go with begging for funding. No, I'm going to charge you for this work, right? Because when we're offering for free, you weren't interested. Okay. We are going to charge you for this work. So as you know, as you know, Victor, lots of things that even yourself, lots of things that you have done. I remember the project you had in the town center, amazing, bringing in different people into that place that you had, music and everything. But it just seems that when we try to do something, it just seems as if somebody just wants to pull the rug from under our feet. But if we take responsibility, going back to what Andrew was saying, colleagues in London in 2007, there was a report done. And the report was on raising the aspirations and attainment of Black boys and young Black men in England, right? The main recommendation for that report was to have role models, have a national role models. And so if you remember Tim from The Apprentice, the first person to win the Apprentice program, Black guy, he was invited to lead on the recruitment of Black professional role models. So 29 guys were recruited as national role models from different walks of life. The government decided to fund a project for a number of years. At the end of the first 2 years, they just pulled the rug. They pulled the rug on it. A group of Black guys got together and says, you know what, this is too important for us to leave it for someone else. It's too important for us to run it, to leave it for anyone else. And so they set up Reach Society. Every year, Reach Society in London put on a careers day for our young people. When they walk into the room, they see over 50, 60 Black men that they are able to, etc. This year, for the first time, we had something similar with men and women, Black men and Black women, at the Chiltern Academy. So our young, and it was put on specifically for our Black young people, not exclusively, anyone could come, but it was put on specifically. So when a youth walked into the place, they saw Black professional men and Black professional women. And that's about us. And how much did it cost to put on this event? How much did it cost to put on the event? Zero.
Nothing.
Why? Because we are saying we have got to take the responsibility and do it for ourselves. Right? We've got to take responsibility and do it for ourselves. The money will follow the vision. Yes, sir. And Councillor Gilbert, I wrote to you and invited you to come to the one we were planning to have in 2020.
Where did you write to me?
I wrote to you at your official address because we have
official address?
Your official email.
I do not use the council email anymore because 99.9% of the emails coming is absolutely nothing to do with me or what I wanted. What I want to tell you now, right?
Yes.
I sit on a panel called Wellbeing Board in the council. The leader of the council is the chair. And the other thing about equality. And I tell them off, what equality? I said, you are trying to wipe the history of Black people out of this town. And if you watch my video, you will see where I talk about the daycare center for the Afro-Caribbean, where I had a protest meeting with the BBC TV and everything. And the council still close it and sell it out, right? This council in this town is trying to destroy the Black community. I'm telling you now, I've seen it on a daily basis, right? Because the Black community helped to build this town and they've been treated very bad, right?
Okay.
So thank you for that, Councillor. Can I just go back to Victor? You asked me what is the biggest barrier? Is it the child? Is it the parents? Is it the school? Etc. that I face. One of the biggest barrier I think I face is getting access to our children, right? Getting access to our children within the school, The employability day that we planned for young people, we wrote to all of the schools. Okay, the response was almost next to nothing, right? Apart from the Chiltern Academy that provided us with the space. So it's accessing our young people, making parents aware. But there isn't enough of us doing this work. That is a problem, Victor. Not enough of us working together to raise the aspirations of our young people.
Chiltern, sorry to interrupt, but Chiltern Academy is part of the Valen.
Chiltern Learn, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So they were very good. The Chiltern Academy was. We didn't get much response from the wider Chiltern Learning group.
Yeah, I approached them before, all to provide anti-bullying in all the schools. There's 5 schools connected together in a kind of conglomerate thing. Yeah, they are total opposition to anything that makes them look like they're not providing something.
All right.
Yeah.
Andrew said that's why Dr. Adams, that we have to treat our projects like breakfast, so to speak. It's the first and most important meal of the day. The success of your projects will come from the breakfast stage of the phase, the planning and implementing. It will make sure that we use every penny wisely and efficiently. And then Abdul Mohammed has put, all those who want to be educated on Black history, go to this site, very insightful. And that's on the book. All right, can I ask you a question? Can I ask what the Fairness Task Force is about, and the blackhero.com before we wrap up?
Okay, the Fairness Task Force is an initiative by Luton Borough Council to address issues around equality, diversity, and inclusion. So it's reaching out to everyone within the community, asking the question: what does fairness for us as a community, for us as a people in Luton, what does that look like? And it's about different institutions, different groups working together for a better Luton. Okay, so anyone can get involved in the Fairness Task Force. As you guys know, it's something which I am a part of, but as a voice within the community to challenge the council, because as you know, with Marsh House, I'm saying to the council, if you're talking about fairness, then don't just simply talk about it, exercise this fairness. The blackhero.com, okay, the blackhero.com is my domain. Okay, right. I've been trying to put this together for a while, and the reason why it's called the Black Hero, it actually goes back to education. It actually goes back to understanding what education is, and education is a journey. It's a journey, and on this journey, you go through all the different challenges and all of the different experiences. I'm bearing in mind that education is rooted, very, very deeply rooted in ancient Africa, right? Mm-hmm. Once you understand this hero journey, right? Because that was what the education is about. You start off as an ordinary person, if you like, and you go on this journey where you attain that knowledge of self and an understanding of how you use the different disciplines, okay, for the greater good. Because the end result of the hero is for the greater good. The hero comes back from their journey with gifts and talent for the greater good.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, anybody else? Well, one more last question and then we wrap it up.
I just made a statement about sitting on a committee where I have proven that this council in Luton have no interest They closed down the well-being and luncheon clubs, got rid of them. I used to sit on the chair. They got rid of the one and only place that was left for the Black community in this town, which was the daycare center, which I helped to find and argue to get it in 1999 before I became a councillor. And you talking about this council do not what the population in this town now is 55% Asian. They don't care about the Black community. I am telling you now. I listen to them on a daily basis and everything they've done. I sit at the committee, a meeting where the portfolio holder should have been there to answer questions from the Black community. What they did, they sent some Black officers that work for the council. And I apologized to the officers. I said, you should not be here answering the questions. It should be the portfolio holder in the council. When I said, ask a question in the council, the portfolio holder was an Asian. Why is it you've done this to the Black community? They said some of them must have dead or gone back home. That was the answer in full council meeting. When I questioned them, that is the stupid thing I get all the time. They attack me because I have a go at them. And every opportunity I have, I pull them up where they are destroying and trying to wipe the history of the Black community out of this town. And we must, Norris Bullock, God rest his soul, he's passed away, right? He was a Labour councillor and he worked with me and was gonna tell the Black community in this town, don't vote for them no more. But God took him away from us, right? And I'm telling you, even he came to see the light that what this council do to Black people.
Okay.
So let's wake up. They have no interest in us anymore. There's another section of the community they have interest in.
All right. Okay, guys.
Do you think that's because?
Sorry about my rant, okay?
No, you're fine. You can go and say your piece. Perhaps.
Do you think?
Quickly.
I was just on that. Do you think it's because they represent the commercial side, the Asian community, I suppose, the 55% represent the commercial side of Luton with all the shops that they own and stuff like that.
What was I realizing?
And so they just see
we came here first, just after the war, and we helped to build this town. We should be the elder Blacks should be looked after. They should treat Black people with the respect they should give. They don't do it anymore. We're treated as third-class citizens now.
Yeah.
Second, but third.
Why do you think that? So do we need more representation in council?
Obviously.
You see, this is one of my problems. People look at me and say, why you want to be a conservative? What has that got to do with it if I'm going to fight for my people? Right? I don't have to be Labour to fight for my people. We have had Labour councillors in this town, and I ask them, what have you done for your people? And none of them can tell me. I have one councillor did not know we had 4 cricket club, West Indian cricket club in this town at one time. I am president of my cricket club now. The one and only cricket club left. And we're struggling to keep it going. And we're fighting for it. And we have a vision. And hopefully, if we can get the youngsters involved, the money will follow and we can progress even greater.
Okay.
Because the ECB is willing to, once you have youngsters and female now, female cricketers, once you start to have that.
We're kind of going off a little bit here, isn't it?
Yeah.
Going off a little bit.
We are.
Trevor, do you want to sum up, Trev? before we wrap up?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Basically, for there to be a real change, we have to take responsibility for our destiny. We have to do things for ourselves, and we have to lay the put the resources together so that the next generation can build. But my buzzword is taking responsibility. Is we have to take responsibility for our destiny. But thank you very much, guys. It's been
Most
absolutely incredible. Really, really appreciate that.
Cheers. Thank you so much for your time, Pastor Trevor. So, can I ask you, would you prefer to be called pastor or doctor?
It depends on the context.
Okay.
Yeah, it depends. It depends on the context. Yeah,
Right,
Glenn would tell you that he calls me the Rasta Pastor.
okay.
Yeah, the Rasta Pastor. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's I am. People call me different things.
All right. Well, give thanks for your time, Steve.
Thanks for coming, Pastor.